We know that KO comes from an alternate dimension where humans and Radiants were at odds with one another. His reality hosted an event known as the Radiant War. In this dimension, Kingdom had an anti-yield program that made him into what he is now, a machine built to neutralize Radiants. Through Fate's dossier, we get to know that this program existed momentarily on Alpha Earth as well, but was eventually cancelled. Keo fought alongside humans like Brimstone and Sova in the war against Radiants. Brimstone looks visibly different. His apparel is blue, and the insignia on his beret is different. He also has a scar over his right eyebrow. Towards the end of this war, Keo faces off against Reyna and neutralizes her, which puts an end to it. Even after securing their victory, it is evident that humanity is at a major loss. Brimstone does not survive this war. In Keo's lore card, we can see him carrying Brimstone out of a city in ruins. Soon after the conclusion of the war, he travels to Alpha Earth to make sure a war like this never happens again. Now, if we look closely, we notice that Keo isn't wearing anything around his neck. But as he faces Reyna towards the end of the war, he can be seen wearing dog tags. Even though this isn't officially confirmed, I think that these dog tags belong to Brimstone after he passes away, and Keo wears them in his memory. Keo and Brimstone are confirmed to have a military background, so it makes sense that they would have them. The background shown in this card is a hot pink, with purple aura emanating from Keo's body. This color is probably created from the purple energy unleashed from Keo's ult, combined with the crimson-red sky of his doomed reality. The dark and gloomy atmosphere and cracks on the earth are also very similar to this frame in Keo's Agent trailer. So I think it's a decent guess that this card presents Keo during the Radiant War. Compared to in-game and cinematic stills, Keo seems to be releasing more energy than he usually does, almost as if he's overclocking. Now that we've got the basics out of the way, what makes Keo unstoppable? Keo doesn't know if he will win or not, but as a machine of war and humanity's last hope, he is the only one who can. So he fights without concern to his physical limitations and strain on his body. He fights as an individual with nothing to lose. Due to the color contrast, the card also draws emphasis to the dog tags. That reminds us what Keo is fighting for. He fights for the future of humanity. He fights in remembrance of his best friend. Through the dossier, Fate talks about the fear that Keo has for Reyna now that he is in Alpha Earth. And how can he not? We have to remember that Keo is most definitely Tariq Porter, Brimstone's best friend. Kingdom's anti-yield program is probably just a secretive operation that turns humans into Radianite-enhanced cyborgs. He might still be human on the inside. This expands on the meaning of this card even further. He was shouldering the weight of the world, even though he was extremely vulnerable, processing fear and grief in the heat of the battle. Only in the face of fear can one be truly brave, and Keo is very brave indeed. And that is why I deem this card as one of the best cards in the entire collection. We don't really know how Omen's powers work, which makes him an enigma. Omen's Unstoppable card kinda leans into that ambiguity and utilizes it. But first, let's talk about what's going on with Omen. When we look under his hood, all we see is darkness and blue streaks of energy. Omen is presented as a phantom with the ability to cast shadows, disintegrate, and rematerialize at will. After his failed assassination attempt on Viper, Omen was ripped to shreds due to radiant energy exposure, which made him into a fluid and volatile entity. Omen's design contains bandages covering his arms with gloves on his hands, armor for his torso, pants and shoes for his lower body, and a hood for his head. Every part of him is covered, hidden, and left unexposed. The point that I'm trying to get at is that Omen is very awkwardly put together. We can see where the armor ends and the bandages begin. The straps on the gloves are fastened to make sure that they don't fall off. The hood doesn't seem to be attached to his armor either, and his pants are stuffed into his boots. It's as if the people who studied him didn't really know what he was or what to do with him. This gives us an idea that his clothing acts as a vessel that tightly binds him, giving shape to his current form. This helps Omen look more human-like. Whenever Omen uses his powers in-game or in the cinematics, he assembles back to the form we are familiar with. But in this card, we can see a force stretching and ripping his clothing as shadow and mist pours out of his hood and bodice. The force pulls on his bandages as small blue wisps of energy escape from his arms. It's almost as if he's unraveling, and as he finally abandons his vessel, we realize that we have always known a lesser version of him. Now we get to see what he truly is. Something incomprehensible, something unfathomable. And as shadows fill the space around him, you realize that he isn't just an individual being anymore. He is everything, and he is everywhere. Omen has a weird ability to perceive things that others do not. He has a solid understanding of radiant powers, unknown concepts like the natural balance, and the emotional states of his friends and foes. He can also perceive the effects of astral guardian powers, as implied from his voice lines with Astra. These interactions further support my interpretation of Omen being something more. The Unstoppable card does a really good job by portraying Omen between his two states of chaos and equilibrium. This is one of the only cards that I kinda have an issue with. I can't really get anything out of it. To me, Viper's Unstoppable card doesn't convey anything special. It doesn't give us a hint of what she's capable of. It doesn't portray the fury or anger inside of her, as noted by her fellow agents. It doesn't show us a previously unknown side of Viper either. On top of that, it's not that different from the first Viper card released during the beginning of the game. The framing of the character, her strong posture, her penetrating gaze, and the usage of her toxins are features that we've seen from her before. She isn't even wearing her badass retractable eye mask that can be seen in the agent selected animation. Maybe we could have seen some new gear, weapons, or maybe a new kind of a toxin she's been working on. Okay, now imagine yourself deep inside the Viper's pit, where every step you take is one step away from home, and then you see it, yellow eyes piercing through the smoke around you. And before you realize that the eyes are looking right at you, it's already too late. Maybe we could have gotten a POV shot of one of Viper's victims. That could have been cool. But I digress. Now I realize that the Unstoppable cards are supposed to be agents using their ultimate abilities, and maybe that's that. And that's why the top left corner of each card has the ult icon on it. But for the agents, the ultimates usually represent something. Chaos card could have shown him using his ultimate in a training facility over at Valorant HQ, or let's say during the warm-up cinematic, but the Radiant War was chosen as a setting instead. We could have gotten an Omen card while he's just about to ult, but actively seeing him disintegrate emphasizes the horror aspect associated with him. And then we have Reyna. Is Reyna strong because of her ultimate ability? Or is it her determination and unwavering resolve to provide for her sister and the residents of her sanctuary? Is Reyna unstoppable because of her radiance? Or because she fights as the matriarch of her extended family? My main point is that agent ultimates paired with their emotions, desires, or beliefs can also make them look much cooler. And we already have an example of this. The Why We Fight Back cinematic. Tears running down her eyes shows that she fights for love. Her rage shows us how much she cares. The assault against Alpha Valorant presents her determination to protect her home planet, Omega. Viper shows strength in her most vulnerable moments and makes difficult but necessary decisions. In my humble opinion, this could be the true Unstoppable Viper card. Maybe they wanted the Unstoppable card to address both Alpha and Omega agents, not just one of them specifically. But even then, in the aftermath of the Omega assault on Alpha Valorant, Alpha Viper talks to Alpha Brimstone about how she has thought of taking charge as well, because he can be sentimental sometimes. In a non-threatening manner, she tells Brimstone that when needed, she will act. This conversation between these guys shows us that In either reality, Viper is an understanding but firm individual. So when you think about it, Alpha and Omega Viper aren't that different from one another. I think it might have been cool if they held the release of the Unstoppable Viper card until after the release of the Why We Fight Back cinematic. Well, either that or they could have been more experimental with it. Iso's radiance gives him the ability to convert intangible radiant energy into tangible objects. As a result, he can create indestructible walls and shields to protect himself. Sage calls him a brilliant architect, which is a perfect description, further justified by the hexagonal motif around him. The latest lore reveals that Iso had studied at Summit. He seems to have attended the same academy as Sage. This would definitely explain why he is so proficient with his powers. A radiant powered by talent and nurtured by radiant experts is pretty scary. His most impressive feat is his ultimate ability, where he creates a domain in a space known as the Interverse. For now, all we know is that the Interverse is a space between Alpha and Omega Earth. Gecko has traveled through this place with the help of his Radivore companions in order to escape a kingdom facility. Iso basically uses the Interverse as a free parking spot for the construction of his domain, realizing a physical barrier around himself and his opponent. He calls this realm the Arena. The barrier to the arena is constructed by fitting together solid plates of radianite energy. This, combined with the hexagonal pattern background, is similar to what we have seen in his Agent trailer as well. When you think about it, he has the ability to construct objects using radiant energy. So what's stopping him from creating shackles or other restrictions that bind his opponent? Can't he quite literally teleport someone into the arena, trap them inside a box, and just shoot them? So Iso teleports you and himself to the Interverse, where he meticulously creates the arena from the ground up, which is made of pure radianite energy, by the way. And if we are to take my speculation into consideration, he can create restrictions on you, but chooses not to. Even if that isn't true, he canonically suppresses his own radiant powers, heals you completely, and gives you a fair fighting chance. His indomitable figure towers over you as you realize how dead you really are. Like, genuinely, what are you supposed to do? Another cool detail is the giant hexagon directly behind him. The positioning almost makes it look like a hexagonal halo, crowning him as a divinity or a god. I love this card. The low camera angle is a perfect choice for this card, as it helps the viewer truly understand the scale of the arena and how impressive all of this is. Iso isn't as outgoing as the other duelists. He has a calmer, reserved personality. Most of his voice lines are related to learning and treating fights as a lesson, which is quite similar to Sage. But even then, my favorite stereotype of egotistical and confident duelists still stands. Iso chooses to show these traits through his abilities. Why else would he bring you into his arena and give you an equal fighting chance? As a Radiant, whose main ability seems to be constructing things, he puts in a lot of work. Why go through so much effort at all? And as a contract killer, and as a fixer, it's his job to eliminate his targets successfully. Why would he give his opponent so much agency inside his own domain? I think it's because he prefers making a statement through his methodology. This has earned him an infamous title of the Dead Lilac. Through his efforts and execution, he has made himself into a living myth. I would like to talk about more cards and artwork in the future, especially when more information on lore comes out. If you've watched the video so far, then once again, thank you for watching.